Donald Trump gave Elon Musk even more power, delegated more executive power to the head of the Department of Governmental Efficiency, which is not a governmental department by legislative action, but rather a pseudo department that Donald Trump came up with and brought to life with an executive order. And Elon Musk heads it, and he is going through every single agency, every single department of our government to figure out where cuts can be made to the federal workforce and thereby the budget and the size of the federal government, both monetarily and in terms of personnel. So all of these things, all of these actions, these are happening within the executive branch of the government, which is critical in executing the laws, executing the laws, uh, because the president has the constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. But here we are inching closer to the federal government trying to defy court orders. Now, Vice President Vance has talked about it, and I've talked about the judicial attacks on the court in a previous video. You can check it out on my channel. But today I want to say that we are hanging on by a thread. And we are hanging on by a judicial thread because all of this is going to go to the courts. And some of the cases they will lose. Most of the cases, the courts will favor the federal workers or rule against the executive's authority to do something such as withhold the funding or stop the enforcement of the law when it quite enunciatedly and expressly in the Constitution says that the president shall take care that the laws are faithfully executed. It's not that the laws be faithfully violated. So it has to be performed, and the courts will have to determine whether Donald Trump and Elon Musk's Department of Governmental Efficiency have the constitutional authority to stop spending appropriated by Congress, to defy court orders when orders are being given, or if you go to the worst case scenario, expressly ordering federal forces, enforcement forces to stand down in case a court order was given to stop Elon Musk and Doji, and then take it to the courts, and the courts would put a stay on it, and Donald Trump would just not listen to it and would not, would say the federal government won't enforce that. Well, there's going to be real chaos when that happens. And my question at the time is, I understand the idea of jurisdiction. I understand the idea of general jurisdiction and specific jurisdiction. I understand that people living in states generally have the general jurisdiction over those people. But the federal government has exclusive federal jurisdiction over the federal courts and any federal laws broken in that particular state. However, should the situation arise that the federal executive does not enforce a federal court order, that's my question. When the federal executive, Donald Trump in this case, expressly says, I will not enforce that order, and all federal enforcement services from marshals to the FBI will have to stand down. And at that point, my question is, can the federal court sitting in that particular district in that state where the state does not have jurisdiction over the case, but the federal judge. Can the federal judge ask the state executive for help in enforcing the federal order, whether that be civil contempt or criminal contempt? We know that that order is not going to be given against Donald Trump, but Elon Musk is not covered by the same immunity principles as Donald Trump. And especially not so if it is constitutionally determined by the courts that Donald Trump doesn't have the power to stop or control spending, maybe control a little bit, but stop federal spending. It doesn't have the power to change birthright citizenship, doesn't have the power to extend his tenure to a third term in violation of the 22nd Amendment, doesn't have the authority, the constitutional authority, to take away birthright citizenship from the 14th Amendment. These things are adjudicated in the courts, and it goes up to the highest level, and the Supreme Court sides with the rights of the people, and it sides with the Constitution, which, I mean, if you would have to be far more rogue court than I believe we currently have to be able to completely throw away the 14th Amendment, throw away the 22nd Amendment, throw away any other protections provided by the Constitution, throw away checks and balances and the separation of powers, throw away the power of judicial review. I can't see the Supreme Court doing that. Going back to Marbury versus Madison all those years ago, where the court asserts a place of judicial review. And ever since then, we have had the history and tradition and the law. So we need to understand where we are as a country. We are at a point where Donald Trump is now given Elon Musk even more power to access the executive branches of our government. The question remains whether he has the power to delegate it to Elon Musk to begin with. The question lies in the legitimacy of the Department of Governmental Efficiency. Whether that level of enforcement where Elon Musk can go above a Senate-confirmed cabinet secretary in making budgetary cuts and other personnel cuts, then the question comes that does that agency and does the head of that agency need to be Senate confirmed? And if the answer to that is yes, then all the actions that Donald Trump is taking through Elon Musk are unconstitutional until Congress enacts a statute that establishes Doji. So for now, these cases are going to go up. Flurry of cases are going to go up. The federal workers are going to sue. Nonprofits are going to sue. The states have already sued. We're going to go to the courts and see who has standing to sue. Then we're going to see what the cause of action is. And I think there's going to be a bunch of class action employment lawsuits coming up. There's going to be a bunch of other, I can't think of it specifically, but I know that they're going to be class action because it's a broad sweep, arbitrary and capricious order given by the executive without thinking about faithfully executing the laws that are enacted by Congress and then signed by a president, and then it becomes a law of the land, just like the Constitution, and must be adhered to. So pay attention to that. Keep calling your members of Congress, keep calling your senators to tell them that this Doji power encroaches on Congress's power to spend money and Congress's power to create departments through legislation. This is encroachment on legislative power, and it's an assault on judicial power. Judicial power is what's still hanging on. Congress seems to have relented their powers with the votes that Senate is giving to confirm Donald Trump's extreme nominees. So we know that is going, the Senate has relented its duty. And we hear that Mike Johnson agrees with the administration, obviously, and they're going to be codifying a lot of the things that are now happening currently. So does the legislating happen first, or the executing happen first? We're in that hodgepodge of a scenario where Donald Trump is ruling by fiat through Elon Musk, and Congress intends on codifying it in the near future, while the lives of hundreds of thousands of federal workers, lives of hundreds of thousands of people who rely on the government with the U.S. aid, not just with foreign aid, but also with farm subsidies that comes from U.S. aid. The harm that is currently being caused is destroying Americans' soft power around the world and undercutting our government's ability and our people's ability to do for themselves and for the country what is necessary to keep going forward. Now, there's an excellent article that I reposted on Blue Sky that Professor Richardson has written about how the history of politics went from Abraham Lincoln all the way to where we are today. And we need to go back to the teachings of Abraham Lincoln and even up to President Eisenhower, and then back to Theodore Roosevelt and what they thought about the responsibility of government is, and what giving up and relenting that to those who have wealth and power concentrated to a very few, what harm that does. So please check that out. And welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and like, and I'll talk to you soon.